This is an amazing energy in this room. Thank you guys for being here. Now, the first speaker I'm going to announce, okay, you can have a seat. Unless you want to stand. We're having fun, right? Everyone's like, dude. The first speaker that we have today, I am beyond honored to announce. How many of you guys know Bridget Nielsen? Oh my gosh. She's so cool. And the thing about Bridget is that she talks about the really deep esoteric aspects of disclosure, and I honestly feel like there's nothing more perfect to kick this whole event off. So Bridget's going to be really diving into what disclosure means, and to me, what I like to describe disclosure as is the uncovering of what is hidden. Now that's a big definition, right? There's constantly disclosure happening on a large scale of what's going on and then what's going on in your hearts. And we're going to really give a huge round of applause right now for Bridget Nielsen coming out on the stage. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Oh, she's epic, right? Yes! I think it was just announced that she was going to help be the presenter organizer for the whole weekend, and she's just like, I'm game. So obviously you're amazing. I just want to thank you guys all for being here. Thanks Corey and Roger and everyone who set this up. It's such a special opportunity, and the fact that you guys, like many of you, have never been to one of these conferences before is just a sign of disclosure in and of itself, right? I mean, the fact that you guys have that bold courageousness to show up for yourselves and to show up for the collective today and this weekend is huge. So just thank yourselves for doing that and putting yourself out there. So today, I'm going to be talking a bit of the background esoteric spirituality behind the idea of disclosure, because there's going to be so many amazing talks, presentations throughout this whole weekend, and many of them are dedicated to what's happening out there. And so I wanted to kind of back up and go, okay, how can we view this from a different perspective as we enter into all of this amazing information and amazing insights? So that's what we're going to be going into. And just to begin, Teresa just did a great opening, and I wanted to take that just a little bit deeper, because I can't believe I'm like the first speaker of this conference and just kind of opening up the space. So in this, I wanted to just take a moment for us to first to close our eyes and to go within. I like that. Everyone's getting nestled in their seats. And just taking in a deep breath through your noses. And out through your mouth. And in through your nose. And out through your mouth. And continue with this breathing. And setting into the space. This excitement and this fluttering. It's so exciting. Everyone's come from all over the world, different places. And so just kind of taking this moment to settle into your body. Settle into the energy. Settle into this amazing dome. I mean, when do we get to be in a dome? This is incredible. And so with your eyes closed in this space, opening up to divine light, and calling into this space right now in this dome and throughout this weekend, our higher guidance, our angels, our guides, our souls, our higher selves. Of course, all the cosmic beings that support us all the time, our galactic counterparts, the Alliance, the sphere beings, the raw beings, the hybrid children, and all benevolent beings, caretaking and looking after us and supporting us in this journey on Earth, in this evolution. And so we call upon them because they are free will positive beings, and they require us to call upon them for support. And realizing in many ways we are them. And so calling in that aspect of ourselves, not separate, but connected. So just opening this space for this weekend and in your hearts. And with that, gently opening your eyes. Feels good, right? That's amazing. Thanks, everyone. So to begin, where Teresa was just lovely opening up the space, in considering this weekend, dimensions of disclosure, I was like, well, what is disclosure? What is disclosure to me? And as I considered it, my definition would be authentic transparency. So being very transparent and authentic. And then I was like, well, okay, what would be required for someone to be authentically transparent? What would they need in their behavior, in their state of being to do that? And I thought, well, it would take courage to be transparent and authentic. It would take vulnerability, right? It would take this opening, this exposure of who we are to be transparent. And it would also take radical honesty to be transparent. And so from that, I was like, well, then what would be required in the space from other people, from the world, for that vulnerability to open? And that would need a space of love and a space of forgiveness. It's a critical component. And so as I was thinking about this, I was like, okay, well then how can we go deeper into this? And I thought about the whole idea of disclosure and my connection to it. And it's really started since I was a kid. And who here feels they're empathic, feels they're sensitive? Okay, so most of us in here. And from the time we were kids, we probably felt like this world's kind of weird. And it doesn't feel like they're being authentic, or it doesn't feel like they're expressing themselves. So since I was a kid and since we were kids, we've seen that things are a little bit off, pretty off, right? And so over the past 6 or 7 years, that's changed a bit for me in the way that I'm like, okay, I got into all the extraterrestrial stuff. I started remembering my experiences and seeing all of the hidden stuff, right? All the stuff that we know is going on, all of you guys know. And I thought to myself, what can I do? What can I do? Because this was before I was doing anything. I was just a normal person living my life. And I was like, what can I do to help this mass disclosure, to help the uncovering? I thought, well, I could disclose. I could disclose myself. I could be transparent with what I've experienced. And so that's what I did. I was like, well, what could I do? And I thought, well, maybe I'll make like a YouTube video or something, and I'll talk about my abduction experiences, talk about some of my ET connections. And so I did that. I made a YouTube video, and I shared it to Facebook, and I thought that only my mom would see it. And unfortunately, that wasn't the case, but fortunately, too. And one of my Facebook friends sent it to a major radio station in Los Angeles, and by the next day, me talking about my abduction was all over the radio all weekend. I was like, oh my gosh. And there was this moment of going, oh man, I really let the cat out of the bag. Like, I really exposed this. And there was a moment where especially all these people that were my friends were hearing this, and they're like, are you kidding me? What are you doing? You can't go back from this. And when I made the decision to know that disclosing in myself is a microcosm of the macro, that me doing it on this scale starts to change it on the massive scale, I wasn't going to go back. It's a full, courageous act of stepping forward into it. And it's in a way, it doesn't even take courage, because it's just what's authentically true. It's what's authentically transparent of my own experience. So there's no way I can go back with what's real. And so from that point, I just continued to step forward into it. And that led to where I am now, right here, standing, because I took that act and because I said disclosing in myself helps disclosure out there, right? So it makes sense. And so in this consideration, I went, well, where is it a challenge? Where is it a struggle to disclose within? Where do I see it in myself? Where do I see it in other people? Where do I see it in my clients and such? And it got kind of interesting as I thought about this. And I thought the two areas that are challenging to disclose within, to do this microcosmic work, are one, as we go spelunking into the inner world of our inner being, is to find the gold within, actually admitting that we are incredible, that we are infinite beings, and that all of us have these incredible abilities that we came here to express, that we came here to beam. And actually, that's one of the hardest things to disclose to ourselves, is how incredibly innate and gifted we are, and how we actually came here to do really big work. Sometimes that's actually the hardest thing to admit to ourselves. And especially in the spiritual world, it gets to this thing where it's like, well, I don't want to be egoic, I need to be humble. And then in the programmed mainstream, it's like, well, I've got to just go with what's happening. And really, we're meant to go with who we are. We're meant to be unique. And that might be different. That might be weird. That might be strange. And that might be what's needed. It might not be something that's like Instagram worthy or something that's cool, but it's something that's authentic. And that's what our world needs, is this authenticity. So digging in and finding the gold, finding the fact that we are God, and really tuning into that is critical to the first piece of disclosing within. Now, the second piece, which is more known, is digging into the shadow, digging into the dirt, digging into those creepy, malicious parts that are within us, that we have within us. And it's sometimes hard to admit to those kinds of things. And oftentimes these things manifest in very obvious kind of surface lifestyle ways, in just our relationships. Like, are we being, truly communicating and being honest in our relationships? Are we being honest with our career and our jobs? Like, do we really want to be doing them, or do we want to be doing something else? And say with our health, right? Are there certain addictions or habits we have? Mindsets, programs, physical addictions, whatever those are. So all of those things that are like hidden within our consciousness, we're meant to bring up and look at. And as we do this, these lower desires, the lower chakras as you could call them, if they're not looked at, then they manifest negatively. And that's what's reflected in our world, because no one wants to look at this lower stuff. Sometimes it's easier to look at the higher, bright frequency stuff, but we have to look at these lower desires and these lower impulses that we have so that we can bring it to light and work with it and own it. And so that's a really important consideration as we're going within. Now, in this space, it's kind of interesting, because over the past couple of years, I've actually stopped talking as much about my extraterrestrial experiences. And I've gone more into talking about, well, how can I be a better person? How can I be more loving? How can I be more healthy? How can I help the world in these various ways? And so to remember, too, that disclosure is in every category of life. We have to shift it in every way. And the great thing is that the extraterrestrial conversation is what opens the portal to our higher selves, opens the portal to the higher dimensions of what's happening. So it's kind of like that thing is the catalyst to then go, ooh, what can I do in my everyday life? So that's where we start, is inside. Now, considering that, what do we do with the they? What do we do out there with the government and the military? What do we do with the sleeping muggles and our family and our friends who just don't get it? What do we do with that? Because that ends up being, in some ways, challenging, because the reflection mirror of this reality of consciousness, it feels real, But remember, we're projecting this, and that's why we start from within. So what do we do with the they? That's the great question, right? And often what we see that other people do with the they is you point and you blame, and that's coming from a place of fear. We're meeting the other at that same game, trying to convince our family member, that there are really UFOs. There's evidence. There's tons of evidence. These kinds of things. And so there's this idea of wanting to force change, right? And it's because, one, we care, and it's just overflowing in us. And so we're like, come on, please. So that's, what I feel oftentimes. It's like, come on. And then the other side of it is that to be positively oriented, especially from our higher dimensional beings, right? Like the sphere beings, these beings that we all really adore and want to be more like. Positively oriented beings grant free will. They don't impose. They can't impose. It's not their nature, because positivity always grants choice. And so we always want to grant choice. Well, how do we even comprehend this if they're doing bad things? So it's like, let's stop them, And that's the test, right? And so think about when you were a kid, like step back to in your childhood, and you did something naughty, like you stole the cookies out of the cookie jar and you ate them all, and pretty much you're caught red-handed, like, right, with the cookies all over your face, like something like this. Has anyone ever had anything like that happen where you did something off and your mom or your partner, whoever, comes at you and is like, what did you do? Like, tell me the truth. And they come at you in this kind of like fighting, accusatory way. Well, what do you want to do? You obviously want to like recoil and like hide away, and maybe you get defensive, maybe you get resistance, maybe you get in a fight or flight mode, right? And so this is what's happening in the world when we say like, you did this, that kind of energy, is it automatically creates defensiveness and recoiling. And so what's the alternative? And if we look to the higher dimensional beings and we look to the spirit of who we really want to be, who we want to embody in our higher aspects, we find that love and forgiveness is really the answer. It's the antidote to the other, is to forgive and to love. Well, then the question becomes, how do we forgive this insanity of the world and what people have done? And one of the ways that I've worked with this energy is to understand that I've done it too. And I've had the privilege to have lots of past life, parallel life recall. And I can tap into my other dimensions on other star systems. And right now, I am standing in front of you as a beacon of light and this dimension of going towards love and connection. But in many other times, I wasn't. I've been the darkest dark and the dirtiest dirty, and we all have. And so that's the point, is to step back and get that perspective that we've all done the dirty deed. We've all done the bad things. And when we can realize that and understand it, and actually like really feel that, and how I've transcended that is because I've felt it to such a degree, I've like, okay, I never want to do this again. I never want to repeat this level of darkness. So I'm going to bring that up to my heart. I'm going to bring that to the conscious level so that I never repeat it again. So it's coming into wholeness. It's coming into the realization that we're the full spectrum. We are the dark, we are the light, and we're everything in between. And what this does is it moves us from polarity into a holistic being expressing all energies. And this is why the inner work is so important to do first, because the inner work grants us the forgiveness to ourselves, because we have to forgive ourselves first. And then when we understand how to forgive ourselves, we can forgive the other. So from these higher dimensional perspectives and from forgiving the other, where are we left? We're left with the idea of love. And this is Jesus Christ Consciousness 101, right? Is to love. We know that. We've heard that. No matter what your background is, you know that that's the underpinnings. And there's something really powerful to that. There's a reason for it. And so it's, how can we love and forgive the them, the they, and even our family members or friends who don't quite get it yet? And when we can hold that space, what does it do? It opens the portal to vulnerable, courageous, transparent disclosure. Because otherwise, if we don't, they're going to get defensive and hide away, and it's going to be this fight or flight. So that's one of the considerations that I have of how to deal with the other. Now, what are some of the other things that this reflection is doing for us? Well, one, it's seeing how messy things are out there to show us how much we need to shift within ourselves. And in this shifting within ourselves, it's not a full one-to-one, because the external is a physical manifestation. It's a societal physical manifestation, which takes a long time to actually manifest the physical. And so the actual culture right now, us, all of you right here, and everyone in the world that's starting to transition to this, that knows that there's stuff going on with the government, that knows there's extraterrestrials, that's actually a mass number. The culture is actually shifted. I go and do people on the street interviews with people just random people, normal people, and I ask them these questions, like, do you believe in life beyond this planet? And they say, yeah, duh. And I'm like, okay, I'm just asking. And then I ask, do you believe, in extraterrestrials? Have you had any experiences? Often it's yes. So normal people are getting this. And what happens is the culture, we, the masses, change first. And then we, quote, demand, but in the loving way, right? We create the new systems for the society and the structure to change. So it's kind of like this old clunky, technology is this old clunky system. So in this, as there is this, I want it to change on the outside, that life force is needed within each and every one of us to be directed towards positive, constructive, new world systems. So that's what we're meant to be doing. Is so when we see something off there, we go, how can I do that? How can I create the antidote? How can I create the solution so that when this system over here that's faulty and, broken down falls, I have something to then replace it. So that's where we want our energy to be going, is into the constructive solutions. And sometimes it's easy to get caught up in, the drama or the entertainment of the other things happening, but we need to focus on this. And a great example of how this works is actually what Elon Musk and Tesla is doing right now, which the car companies, from America to Germany, they say they're into electric cars, they're like, okay, I'll dance around in these different technologies just a little bit. And they're not very much. And meanwhile, Elon and Tesla is pumping out, I think, almost like 25,000 cars a month. And people are buying them. The demand, they can't even give enough cars away. They can't make enough cars for the demand of the people. So this is a great example of how the culture's changed. They're like, yeah, gas guzzling cars is a dumb idea. Like, look at this guy. They're amazing cars. Let's do this. The culture changed. And all of a sudden, these guys over here that are, in the different car companies will go, oh, what? No one buys our cars anymore. And this whole new system has replaced it right under their noses. They didn't even know because they can't see it from that perspective. If they're not acknowledging and open to change and to these higher perspectives, then they'll be part of the old system, and this other one will take it over. And so that's what we're wanting to do with disclosure in all different categories of life, is create the new systems so that it can replace the other ones. And so that's one of the ways that we can look at the other and use it as constructive rather than, frustrating or annoying. And the more that we can hold that space of love, the more that our family members and friends will become more interested. And I know this very well because most of my family's background is highly fundamentalist Christian. And like they're seeing me talk about alien abductions and they're just like, oh my gosh. But within that, they've had extraterrestrial experiences, they've seen UFOs, and so it grants them permission to begin to open to it when we acknowledge those experiences in ourselves. So one of the last things I wanted to talk about today is the idea that we are the extraterrestrials we've been waiting for. Right? Literally, genetically, like we are them. And this is really important to get into our bones, to excite into our genetics, to make alive in our epigenetics. Because this is the distancing of the human paradox that we've created for ourselves. Is we're like, oh, we're just these humans over here, and then there's these cosmic beings. But I see it as the Pleiadians looking down and going, well, that's another planet. Those are extraterrestrials. Right? And those are our children too. Like we've helped create them. We're one of the contributors to that experiment, right? And so to realize that humans are extraterrestrials and to treat ourselves like that. And in that space, it's really inspiring to me because I'm like, okay, well, all I need to do is be an epic human, right? All we need to do is be amazing humans. And then we are those extraterrestrials. We're just a different form. We're a part of the human race. And then we can start to become excited about being a part of that, rather than kind of like wanting to escape to these other places, but really realizing that we already are them, right? And so in this, tuning into this, so tune into this now, because this is an amazing opportunity this weekend in so many ways, which I'll get into, to awaken our own galactic councils within. I mean, many of you probably know your different starseed connections, right? How many know like a star system that you come from? Yeah, okay, good. So that's opening up. So even just that line of connection, just that much coming into you and into your awareness is going to awaken and excite that. And the thing that's interesting, if you're on the case where maybe you don't fully feel that in yourself yet, is that doing the personal work, doing that internal disclosure, directly correlates with contact experiences and directly correlates with the awakening of your own cosmic heritage. And I've seen this time and time again with myself and with other people. And so it doesn't seem correlated, but it is. So having that really honest, candid conversation with that person that you've been wanting to have, maybe making that change in your job that you've always wanted to make, these, quote, mundane things in life, instantly, like, open the space. Because think about it. If we're like, oh, no, hide that. Oh, no, yeah, I can't expose that. I can't expose that. And we're having all this stuff that we're trying to hide. These higher frequencies wanting to activate us, wanting us to remember who we are, can't come through to activate. It's like, oh no. And so what happens is that creates distortions, and it also creates this intensity of like ascension, right? And so if we make this space and if we do the inner work, it can land and we can remember our experiences. And so many people ask that to me. They're like, well, why don't I remember my different experiences? Why don't I have conscious memory of my time on Sirius or my abduction or these different things? And it's because that other stuff is in the way. And so it seems human, seems mundane, but it's not. And it can lead to more of the contact. So the question becomes like, how can I access more of this? And how can I truly treat myself as an amazing human and as an amazing extraterrestrial and awaken the galactic council within my own being? Because if there's a galactic council in me, which there is, because I have all these genetic streams running through me, then that means that when I awaken that in me, that means that I'm going to make contact with them, and they are me. So it is the first step to full physical contact. And it's quite amazing, really. And this shift is powerful because a lot of my friends, especially in the past couple years, and myself included, have been having more encounters with, quote, negative beings, like negative reptilians and such. And these beings are actually wanting to change to the positive, which is pretty amazing. So all my friends who are like pretty out there and in there, pretty going for it. They're very lucid dreaming and awakened to all this stuff. They're saying how much that these different beings are coming to them and going, okay, I'm ready to shift. How do I do it? How do I do it? And they're coming to those people because those people are open to forgiving them and they're open to helping them make the shift. And so as we do that with each other, we can really make this shift and help the others out there and help ourselves. So this weekend is a spectacular opportunity to, one, begin disclosing more in ourselves, which you have totally by being here this weekend. That's step one. You put yourself out there. You stood out there physically, in person, which is so powerful. And then the next step, after we've done that, is when engaging with people, how can we be more authentically transparent? How can we reveal ourselves? Even if it's like that you're not feeling good or that you just don't feel like you have any connections, whatever it is, just being really honest about it or being really honest about the amazing things happening. So how can we do this weekend with each other? And then also utilizing the opportunity for any suppressed or dormant hidden parts within our consciousness to awaken, because we're in this beautiful dome, allowing the energy to flow much more than 90-degree angles. We're in amazing nature at the foothills of the Rocky Mountains. We're eating high vibrational food. We're with like-minded people. So we're in this place that allows us to let go of these old programs, let go of these old beliefs, let go of these old habits in many different ways. So on the internal level, we can do that this weekend. So, and then on the external level, right, the they, as we hear these incredible presentations this weekend, when we hear about the other and what they're not doing, how can we forgive them? And how can we hold them in a space of love? And of course, accountability, always accountability for one's actions, but holding them in forgiveness and love. And that's a powerful act, especially as a group, as a collective, because when we do things together, it makes all the difference in the world. This is the idea, it's the 100th monkey effect, and there's more than 100 people here. So when we shift together and when we hold that space of, one, exposure and disclosure, true looking at what's happening, we're not scared to look. So it's like, I am strong enough to know what is happening out there. And I'm also heart-centered enough to love through that experience and to open to that love. And this is what's powerful. So this weekend during the presentations, be sure to tap in, go from hear what's happening informationally in the mind, and then go straight to the heart and go straight to the body and go, how can I love? How can I acknowledge that this is a part of my creation too? And how can I forgive? And that's going to be powerful. And these things radiate out into the collective, especially in these different grid points and when big groups come together. They make far more impact when we're connected. And so then the last thing, is remembering how to connect and how to recognize the extraterrestrial and alien nature of each other. Because online, you can get some idea. And if you got your extrasensory perceptions on, you can perceive generally what's happening. But one of the massive benefits of being in person is getting to be fully activated and get to full introductions to other star systems, to other star nations through those frequencies. And I've never felt it, because I have those other senses on, but I've never felt it like I do in person. And you have the opportunity, it's like meeting people from other star systems. Some of my friends and different people that I've met, I sit with them and they tell me their experiences, say from Andromeda and going on the ship and connecting on that planet. And hearing that and feeling that and perceiving that fully makes me know and understand that place, which just helps me know and understand more of myself. And so take advantage of that in a beautiful way and open to all of the different cosmic heritage beings in this room. And so connect with each other on that level and perceive. That's why we have the empathy, so that we can get those downloads of those codes. And when we get those downloads, it helps awaken ours. So as much as you can do that, really connect with each other in that way. And most of all, we're creating this new culture together. We're creating this new collective wave, moving the energy towards brightness, moving it towards love, moving it towards forgiveness. And so as we're doing this, we are the beginning. We're the frontiersmen of disclosure, especially in the extraterrestrial and different technological ways. And so because we're that culture, how can we be amazing representatives, right? So that when we get home, we hold the space. The energy is just as important as the information. So when we get home and we're with that family member or that person that might not believe it, just holding the field starts to change them. And I know this by experience, and it will start to make them open up, and it'll make them start to ask questions, especially when we're not imposing. Remember the free will of allowing them to come to us, but holding that higher frequency so that it's available, these higher energies of what to experience. So that's what I would suggest for this weekend, and it's such an amazing opportunity to come together in this way. And I can see all of your bright faces and the energy that's possible for us together. And remember, just disclosure starts within, and allowing it to move out, and that it's already happening in so many ways. So thank you guys so much.